Hello, welcome to Rapatopolis Live. This just came out, I guess. I don't know when. Oh, 9 o'clock. Oh, that's a while ago. This came out a couple hours ago, and it is a teaser for an announcement for post-launch content for a game that came out a month ago, which is strange. This is very bizarre. But at the very end of this, you will see, maybe if this could play in, not the worst. At the very end here, there's a nice little teaser for guys just like you and just like me. You'll see that right there. And then none other than Simon coming up to hide all the juicy details from us. But if you've been around this Assassin's Creed community and been playing these games for as long as I have, or even half as long as I have, you will recognize this as it's actually like a Unity animation, right? Where did it go? It's an animation from Unity, basically. It's this little half twirl side hop. The funny thing about teasing this specific move, Simon, is that it's not it doesn't gain height, so people are like, height gaining ejects are back. But if you look, I mean, you'll see that it's not. This particular animation is not gaining any height. It's just a bit of a lateral move. It doesn't mean that height gaining ejects are not coming. They probably are. It looks like we are, in fact, getting a parkour update from Shadows, so that's cool. I'll just let this play 100 times in a row, I guess. So it looks like we are definitely getting a parkour update for AC Shadows, which is great. Very good. Happy to see that. More than anything, same as it was with Mirage. I kind of just appreciate this for the progress that it indicates, that we are being heard to some level, even if we're not getting exactly what we want, and even if it is a month late, or who knows when the thing will actually come out. But they're getting something. They heard us crying and moaning, and they're going to do something to make it better. Is it going to be exactly what we want it to be? Probably not. I'm a little bit concerned that it is this Unity animation, a twirly one, because to me, those animations and the spinning and the twirling and the flipping, specifically because they come from Unity, it's a little bit of a red flag to me. It kind of just represents that form over function sort of gameplay that we have been burned by so many times. I think that's a good way to say it. I wanted to make a video, and I started making a video weeks back talking about what I wanted to see from a parkour update and what was important for them to nail in this parkour update. And now that I'm actually talking about it, it's probably too late. But more than new animations, what I really want to see is the current animations functioning better than they do, a lot better than they do, in a couple of different ways. And everybody wants to say and likes to say height gaining ejects. We want ejects that gain height, and that's true, we do. But more than that, I just want them to be predictable and consistent and able to be executed in an intuitive and consistent way. And I want their outcomes to be predictable. I want to be able to target the objects that I want to target. Do you know what I mean? That's a stupid way to say it, but we need to know what Now is going to do when we tell her to eject. Animations are great. Cool, smooth-looking animations are very good. But if they don't function properly, they're worthless. Say you're in a hang state on a wall. We need to be able to consistently predict what's going to happen if you input the controls to trigger an eject. We need to be able to know where she's going to land, and that needs to be executed with consistency each time. Or else it's all for nothing. What's the point? What's the point in being able to have ejects that gain height and utilize that utility if they are inconsistent or unpredictable? We also need them to have a realistic range. This is a problem that we saw with Mirage, and I've praised Ubisoft Bordeaux for the parkour update in Mirage numerous times, but I think you could probably agree, most people would agree, that sometimes those high gaining ejects, they're a little crazy. They need to be toned down. They need to mess with the values a little bit and make sure that they are producing realistic results that don't look insane. You don't want to eject and then have him, gain 3 body lengths worth of height. He shouldn't be targeting a beam 2 floors above him. You know what I mean? So we want these ejects to be consistent in their targeting. We want them to be realistic in their targeting. We want them to be consistent in their execution. Or else what's the point? Cool animations, great. Gaining height on ejects, great. But above both of those things, I will put predictability and consistency. This is really hard to just freestyle this. I'm so dependent on scripts now. What have I become? All right, so let's use Assassin's Creed 2 as an example because that's kind of my ideal parkour system, and a lot of people would agree with that. We love the old schools and the way that the parkour behaves in those games. So let's use AC2 and let's talk about ejects and gaining height. So say you're in a handhold on a wall and you're going to eject to a beam next to you. You don't want... Ideally, the amount of height gained on these ejects shouldn't be much greater than where your hands currently are, right? Does that make sense? Does that seem like a realistic or at least believable level of height gained? If there's a beam that is above that is higher than where your hands currently are, it wouldn't make sense for Ezio to be able to eject to it, right? And that's what we saw with the Mirage Parkour update. And that's not what I want to see in the Shadows Parkour update. And I think as a byproduct of that, range being far too great, that's where we saw a lot of eject inconsistency suffer. Because you could be trying to eject to a beam that is within that realistic height, because you look at it and you say, oh, look, there's a beam that is just to the left of me that is about level with my hands. I should be able to eject to that. And then you would see Basim target something else that is out of that realistic range. I think that's where a lot of the issues with the consistency in the Mirage Parkour update lie. So I think you can filter out a lot of unwanted actions by keeping the range of Naoe's ejects to a believable level. So adjust those values, reel them in a little bit, let's keep things somewhat grounded, okay? Another thing that we saw a lot of in the Mirage Parkour update, maybe not a lot, but we saw a decent amount of, was what we call self-ejects. And what that means is, say Basim is hanging from a balcony and he performs a side eject to land on top of that same balcony. So the object that he's holding onto is the same object that he ends up landing on. So physically, this just doesn't make a lot of sense for you to be able to eject off of something and then land on that same object. How are you going to push off of something and then land on that same thing? It just doesn't, within the within the confines of physics as we know them to be in the real world, it's just like, it just doesn't make sense, and it doesn't look good. And again, I think making it so there has to be like a, imagine this on like an XYZ like kind of grid. I'm so stupid. I should never be talking about different axes, especially if there's 3 of them. I don't even know if axes is the plural for axis. You know what I'm talking about. Basically, there needs to be you understand what I'm trying to say, right? I don't have to like try to peel my brain open trying to like put the words together. You shouldn't be able to push off of something and land on top of the same thing. Fuck. I'm just gonna move on. I'm so stupid. But again, I think filtering out these types of moves will improve that consistency as well, because no one is thinking, oh, I'm going to eject off of, I'm hanging from the edge of this rooftop, I'm going to eject to the left because I want to land on top of the same rooftop that I'm currently hanging from. No one's thinking that way. So if you filter out that's another way that your consistency will just, as a byproduct, improve, right? Let's talk a little bit more about execution. And by execution, I mean which buttons you press in order to trigger these sorts of moves. In AC Shadows, we have 2 parkour buttons, right? We have a parkour up, which would be X on a PlayStation, or A on Xbox, and we have parkour down, which is circle on PlayStation, B on Xbox, right? Are these new and improved ejects going to be able to be triggered with both of these buttons, or just one of them? Or will you be able to direct more precise targeting based on which one you use? Like, for example, if you press your left thumbstick to the side and press X, will you target a beam that is above you? And if you press your left thumbstick to the side and press circle, will you target one that is below you? That would be a great way, again, to improve consistency. Let us filter targets on our own. That gives players freedom, and it will help us to feel like we're actually in control of our character again. One of the things that makes the older games, let's say AC1 through Rogue, so special is because of how reliable the eject controls are. If you press your left thumbstick to the side and you press the X button, your character will eject. They will, every time. In the RPGs and Mirage and Shadows, which I guess is an RPG, it's not like that. It's like kind of, you have to like at least for me, I have a very specific way that I do it in order to produce the highest level of consistency that I can. And in Shadows, it's probably about 60%. In Mirage, it's probably more like 85, I would say. But even 85 is, that's considerably less than it was in the old games. With Shadows right now, probably about 60, if I had to guess. We got to get that way, way, way up. And I think a big part of the reason that has suffered so much is because all ejects are contextual, right? We don't have free form ejects like we did in the older games where you can eject to nothing. You can just jump, right? In these new games, you have to have a target locked in order to perform one of these ejects. And because the amount of ejects that she's able to perform is so low, there are just not many contexts where she actually can do it. Most of the time when you try to eject, it's just not going to happen. In order to get eject consistency up to 100, you can't do that without having freeform ejects. And I don't really see freeform ejects returning in a parkour update for an RPG Assassin's Creed game. And I think it's not even worth it to do unless you're going to bring back a really good catch ledge mechanic. You know what? It doesn't even have to be really good. It would be possible with just the Mirage catch ledge grab mechanic, so long as freeform eject would trigger Naue into like that freeform fall state, because that's the only time that those grabs worked in Mirage. You had to be in a freeform state. Like, so if you're jumping off of a building with no target available, then you can grab, right? So if Naue is hanging on the side of a building and there's no eligible eject target for her to land on, if pressing your left thumbstick to the side and then pressing X would trigger a freeform eject, as in not targeting any object because there's none to target, then it would have to trigger a freeform jump state or fall state, right? And then you could pair that with a grab mechanic if there was an existing, consistent, reliable one in Shadows, which there currently is not. So, you know what I mean? This is like kind of trailing off too far into the into what is more than likely impossible. And more than likely, more than we will ever get in Shadows with a parkour update. These kinds of things, I think, need to be implemented very thoughtfully. They need to return to the series in a meaningful way, and that doesn't happen through like an afterthought parkour update. Like you have to build the world and build the parkour system in order to have these things work in a meaningful, consistent, reliable way. So I don't think we're going to see that. It would be cool if we did, but as a result, you just can't have perfectly consistent execution on ejects without freeform ejects. I haven't thought this hard about this until just now, and now I'm just speaking it into a microphone, so I'm probably going to have... Animus Drifter's probably going to absolutely annihilate me for this video. This is so stupid. Let's reel it back in really quick and talk about what is realistic for us to get in this update and what I want to see. Again, and I already kind of covered this. I already definitely covered this. But even without the freeform thing happening, say we're not going to get freeform ejects back. Let's just say we're not getting them. I don't know that for sure, unless they could be doing some real hard work over there at Ubisoft and bringing back like a 360-degree catch ledge like we had in AC2 and Brotherhood and all that, and AC1. And AC1, by the way, in 2007. Let me finish talking about executing and inputs. Find a way to filter out dino climb leap jumps, right? So a lot of times, consistency issue that we have in these RPG games is when you are trying to eject, you will actually trigger one of these dino jumps, we call them. That's when the character will jump to the side and grab onto the same wall. They're executed the same way in these RPG games. And because there are two different types of moves that are executed the same way, how are you going to communicate to the game which one you actually want to do? We need a way to filter these out. Ubisoft, I think you should seriously consider adding a button to filter certain moves, like a high profile type situation. Something that will let us say, okay, so if you're clicking, like, okay, so sprint is left thumbstick by default, right? And that would not be the ideal control for this. Ideally, it would be a trigger, which I suppose you could do, right? Even with default controls, we're not using the triggers in parkour at all. So let's say if you're holding right trigger and you press your left thumbstick to the side and X, that will prioritize an eject. If you let go of that trigger and just press the thumbstick and the X, prioritize the dino climb leap grab move thing, right? Something like that. We need things to help us filter moves, and we need to have a reliable execution method for these advanced parkour moves. Even with the Mirage parkour update, it was never like really communicated what is the appropriate way to eject. There's a lot of guesswork involved. There's different techniques that people have. Some people say, oh, if you do this, you know, if you press, like for me, I say just press them both, press your thumbstick and your X button as fast as you can, as hard as you can. Do it swiftly, do it sharply, do it powerfully. That's what works best for me. Other people have different methods. That shouldn't be the case. There should be a true and correct way to do it, right? I mean, it only makes sense. So please give us that. At this point, though, it's probably too late for these words to reach anyone that can actually implement these things. I really think Ubisoft would benefit by having somebody who really knows what players want from parkour to consult on these things. And that's tricky because there are different people who have different opinions on what is the best system. I don't know, man. I just hope that with this update we see realistic looking physics. I hope that we see consistent object targeting that is predictable, that is reliable. I would love to see even just the Mirage catch ledge come back. That would especially work well with the like dive move. You can just dive off of buildings now, but there's times, just happened to me just yesterday, I dove off a building. I used that big jump dive roll move off a building, and there was a situation where I definitely could have caught on to like one of those little half wall things, and I couldn't. The catch ledge doesn't work. It works like 0.5% of the time, and I don't understand why or how, but it just doesn't work. I'd like to see that. I want to see realistic eject targeting as far as range and height. I want to see consistent execution as far as the execution itself, hands on the controller type of way, and I want to see consistency within which objects are being targeted by the game. And I think that's all we can really ask for. I think that's all that we can realistically expect and hope for. Beyond that, it's still going to be the RPG parkour system with some upgrades, and it's still going to be Japan, which is not exactly a parkour wonderland. But I'm very happy to see that there are changes being made. I'm very happy to see that our complaints are being addressed and that they're trying to bandage the situation the best that they can. So thanks Ubisoft for that. I appreciate it. If you want somebody, I've said this before, if you want some real parkour nerds to come help you out next time around for Hex or whatever, I can put together a real solid team for you. I know a lot of big brain type of parkour boys that'll really take your movement to the next level. I'm serious. I'm available. All right. Sorry for this chaotic rant. I just thought it would be fun. And I got a couple comments, people asking me, what do you think about this? And I said, what? I think about what? I don't have Twitter. So, but I was able to get the video nonetheless. Anyways, yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.